There are days when we feel swept into the whirlpool of work, of responsibilities, of tangled relationships. Each morning we wake up with a heavy body, a troubled mind, yet our feet still must keep moving. It seems as though countless things are waiting for us to resolve. A person may grow weary because of daily necessities, because of debts and burdens, or weary because of unfulfilled affection, because of a loneliness no one understands. In those moments, we often force ourselves to endure, to run faster, to prove that we are still fine. But inside, we are simply human beings longing for a place to stop, to breathe, and to listen to ourselves. At times, you may feel like a traveler walking endlessly on a road without end, each step growing heavier, not knowing where the destination lies. Perhaps you have asked yourself, why is life so exhausting? Why does sorrow follow sorrow, while joy is as brief as passing clouds? It is in those very moments that you realize what you need is not to run faster to overcome everything, but to allow yourself to pause for a little while. The Buddha taught that when the mind is too weary, we must learn to stop, to let go, so we can nourish our inner peace once again. Just like a river, if it keeps rushing without a bend, its banks may break. Human beings are the same. If we keep throwing ourselves into struggles, desires, and endless worries, our body and mind will be worn down sometimes. It is not about abandoning everything, but giving the mind a quiet space so it can see clearly what truly needs to be held and what should be released. Try to remember, has there ever been an afternoon when you simply sat peacefully at your porch, watching the silent sky, listening to birds singing, and suddenly felt your heart soften? That is the moment when the mind pauses, no longer pulled away by the noise of the world. Resting the mind is no less important than resting the body. Like a door that is opened and closed continuously without oil, it will quickly wear down. Human beings are the same. We need to settle down in order to recover. Some people think stopping is weakness, is failure. But in truth, stopping to breathe, stopping to listen to oneself, is an act of courage. Because in this life, no one can run forever without fatigue, and no one can carry all sorrows without being drained. We must learn to love ourselves as we would love a friend who is exhausted. When you can love yourself, you will have enough compassion to love others. If you are weary, try setting down some of the burdens you carry. Give yourself a real space to sit still. Close your eyes and listen to your breath. Just that alone is already the first step into the path of letting go. The first step toward peace. Do not rush. Do not think you must do something grand. Simply give yourself permission to pause, and you will feel your heart becoming calmer, lighter, and more at ease. There are quiet moments when we ask ourselves, why is life so full of uncertainties and sorrows? It seems so few people have a life that is complete in the way they wish. The wealthy often lack peace. The poor struggle with daily necessities. The successful sometimes feel empty and lonely, and those who fail carry shame and pain. Such realities help us understand that life is not painted in rosy colors. It is woven with both joy and suffering, and often suffering occupies the larger part. When we recognize this truth, we stop blaming ourselves for being weary, because it is not our personal fault. It is simply the nature of human existence. The Buddha clearly taught in the Four Noble Truths. Suffering is an undeniable truth. Life is suffering. For from the moment we are born, we already carry the burdens of living, illness, aging, loss, and death. We suffer because things do not go our way. Suffer because we must part from those we love. Suffer because we must stay near those we dislike. Suffer because our desires remain unfulfilled. When we understand this, we realize we are not alone in our weariness. Every person in this world, no matter their status, must experience their own pains. Your weariness does not make you weak or inadequate. It simply shows that you are living within the true nature of human life. There is a story shared by the Buddhist Channel Phat Phap Lin Ning about Nugent Von Hung, a rattan weaving worker in BNHDNG. HNG worked for 15 years in the same company, believing he would stay until retirement. He was diligent, humble, living simply, just hoping his children could study well and his family could live in peace. But then misfortune arrived unexpectedly. The company went bankrupt. Hundreds of workers lost their jobs, including him. At 40, with family burdens heavy on his shoulders, he suddenly found himself unemployed. During those months, he fell into despair. He sought work everywhere, but no one hired him because of his age and limited skill set. He felt life was unbearably unfair. He lived each day in frustration, sleepless nights, and at times even thought of giving up everything. His story is not rare. How many of us have stood at such unexpected crossroads? A person deeply in love is betrayed. A thriving business collapses overnight. A happy family suddenly breaks apart. Life is inherently full of disappointments, and no one can walk through it without stumbling. If we expect life to be entirely bright, if we expect constant stability, we will collapse easily when misfortune comes. But if we understand that suffering is inherent, that disappointment is natural, we will face it with greater ease. The Buddha once said, "It is precisely because life is suffering that human beings have the chance to awaken." Suffering is like a bell that calls us back to ourselves, teaching us to live more mindfully and peacefully. Suffering is not a punishment. It is part of the journey of growth. After months of despair, HNG finally realized that blaming life or blaming others brought no relief. He began taking small jobs, then learned motorcycle repair. Life was no longer stable, but his heart felt lighter because he had stopped demanding that everything go his way, and instead accepted reality in order to move forward. From his story, we learn when life is not as we wish, instead of blaming ourselves or blaming others, we should understand that this is natural. Everyone in this human world must walk through difficult paths. The important question is whether we allow ourselves to learn how to walk more gently. If a 4-year-old worker can rise again after falling, then we, too, can rise from the place where we once collapsed. So if you feel exhausted by life, do not think it is because you are inadequate. Do not blame yourself for not being good enough to keep a job, not kind enough to keep a love, not strong enough to overcome challenges. Weariness is simply the voice of the body and mind, reminding you that you are living in a world filled with suffering and imperfection. When you recognize the truth of suffering, you will stop tormenting yourself, stop blaming life, and begin to love yourself more deeply. Life is not all rosy, yet because of the gray days, we learn to value the light. Because of rainy days, we learn to cherish the sun. And because of suffering, we learn to yearn for peace. When you accept this truth, you have already taken the first step on the path of letting go, the first step toward tranquility in life. We often suffer simply because we keep holding on to something in our hearts. It may be a careless word someone said, a keepsake that has lost its use, or a sad memory from the past. When the mind clings, it binds itself to an invisible rope. The more we struggle, the tighter it becomes. Some cling to fame and chase it their whole lives. Some cling to old affection and suffer endlessly. Some cling to loss and cry every single day. Yet do you realize, it is the clinging that multiplies our suffering. The event itself has long passed. The Buddha taught, what should be let go, let go. What should be kept, keep. This is not a call for indifference. It is a reminder born of wisdom. Some things, when held, become a foundation for living well. But some things, if we hold too tightly, become burdens that exhaust us. Clinging is like carrying a heavy backpack. Each day we stuff it with worries, anger, regrets. And then we wonder why our legs no longer have the strength to walk. The story of Fem Thao Lan, a small market vendor, may help us understand this more clearly. Lan lived with her husband for over 10 years before he fell ill and passed away. Before his death, he left her a wedding bracelet. She cherished it as a treasure, for it was the last token of his love. Whenever she felt sad, she would take the bracelet out, look at it, and burst into tears. 10 years passed, yet the pain of losing her husband never faded. It felt as fresh as yesterday. Lan often told others that as long as she kept that bracelet, she could never forget him. But it was also because of that bracelet that she locked her own heart in endless sorrow. One day, while visiting the temple to pay respect to the Buddha, Lan heard the abbot teach, we keep an object not to hold on to a person, but to preserve the love within our heart. If that object brings more suffering, then let it go, for the one who has passed would also wish for your peace. Hearing those words, she burst into tears. That night, she thought deeply and decided to offer her wedding bracelet to the temple. From that day on, she no longer clung to her grief. She began spending more time volunteering, helping those in need, and her heart slowly grew lighter. The memory of her husband remained, but it was no longer a bleeding wound. It became a gentle tenderness, a motivation for her to live better. From Lan's story, we can clearly see that attachment does not help us keep anything. It only makes us suffer more. A keepsake, a sad memory, an unresolved anger. All of these can become chains binding our heart if we do not learn to let go. Letting go does not mean forgetting everything, nor does it mean becoming indifferent, but knowing how to set down what is unnecessary. When you can put down even a portion, your heart will feel lighter by that much. Like a mountain climber, If willing to abandon excess baggage, you will have the strength to go farther in daily life. We can practice letting go in very small ways. When someone speaks a hurtful word, instead of holding it inside and suffering all day, try letting it go like a breeze passing by. When you have an old item you no longer use, try giving it away instead of keeping it and adding clutter. When a relationship no longer brings joy, keep the respect, but let go of the attachment. That is how we show compassion to our own heart. The Buddha taught that everything in life is impermanent. What we cling to today may dissolve tomorrow. People think attachment means keeping something, but truly, it causes the greatest loss, the loss of present peace and happiness. Only when you dare to let go can you truly keep the most precious thing, the peace within your heart. Ask yourself, is there something in your life right now that you are holding too tightly? Perhaps an old anger, a regret from the past, or an object you cannot bear to discard. If so, try letting go just a little, and you will feel your heart becoming much lighter. Letting go is not losing, it is gaining a more peaceful life. Only when we let go of attachment can we truly smile at ourselves, at others, and at life. And then the road ahead becomes brighter, lighter, and filled with hope. My dear friend, on the journey of life, every person tastes failure at least once. It may be failure in work, in love, in study, or in plans we placed so many hopes upon. Failure is like a sudden downpour, arriving when we least expect it, washing away our hopes, leaving behind emptiness, doubt, and discouragement. Many people, after failing, lose the strength to stand up again and live in shame, in self-blame, even losing themselves. But there is a truth we must understand. Failure is not the end. It is simply an essential part of the path of growth. In the Buddha's teachings, he often reminded us that life is impermanent. Nothing lasts according to our wishes. Happiness changes, success changes, and failure is but one state in the endless flow of causes and conditions. The Four Noble Truths show clearly that suffering is inherent in human life, and failure is one form of suffering we must face. It does not arise to punish us. It is the natural result of causes and karmic conditions. Whatever seeds we sowed in the past bear fruit in the present. If we once planted seeds without wisdom, then today's failure is an opportunity to reflect, to adjust, to cultivate greater insight and resilience. Therefore, instead of seeing failure as an incurable wound, let us see it as a lesson life offers us. The story of Tern von Min from ArtNet is a clear example. At 28, Min decided to start a small coffee shop. He invested all his savings, borrowed from friends, believing he would soon find success. At first, business was good, and he was full of hope. But after just 1 year, things fell apart. His financial management was weak, his service inconsistent, and he lacked competitive experience. The shop grew emptier and emptier, until Min had to close it, carrying a heavy debt and the bitter taste of failure. For months afterward, Min was in crisis. He avoided friends for fear of ridicule. He avoided family out of guilt. At times, He thought he might never try anything again. But one day, by chance, he heard a monk's teaching online. The monk said that failure is nothing to be ashamed of, for it is simply the fruit of an incomplete seed we once planted. When we see that conditions were insufficient, we can begin planting new seeds, this time with more wisdom. What matters is not how many times we fall, but what lessons we learn each time, and whether we dare to rise and continue. Hearing those words, Min began to change his perspective. He sat down to analyze why he failed, writing down every mistake in management, planning, and dealing with people. Instead of blaming himself, he treated the failure as an expensive lesson he had just completed. After gaining more experience and learning from those ahead of him, Min decided to try again. But this time, he opened only a small shop within his capacity, managing every expense, every service, detail carefully. Gradually, the new cafe stabilized, customers increased, and Min's smile returned. His story reminds us that failure is not a period, but only a comma on the long road. If we accept it, we grow. If we let go of blame and inferiority, we gain strength to continue. Failure, in truth, is part of learning and refining ourselves. A person who has never failed has never truly matured. Only through falling do we understand the value of rising. In everyday life, many people suffer because they cannot accept failure. After a breakup, some close their hearts and never dare to love again. After a financial loss, some lose all confidence and blame fate. But through the eyes of the Dharma, everything arises from causes and conditions. When conditions come together, we succeed. When conditions disperse, we fail. And conditions are always changing. No one can hold any state forever. Therefore, do not drown in failure. See it as an opportunity to grow, a mirror to reflect upon ourselves. When you fail, allow yourself to be sad, but do not let sadness imprison you for too long. Take a deep breath, calm your mind, and remind yourself, I've just gained another precious lesson. Think of failure as part of karma, and when we have repaid that karmic portion, we can walk more lightly. Remember, every wound can heal with time, as long as we do not scratch it open again. Failure, when accepted, becomes a firm foundation for growth. It teaches humility, patience, appreciation for small successes, and more importantly, it teaches us to let go of arrogance, to soften the ego, and to live harmoniously with this impermanent world. So when you fall, do not fear. See it as part of the journey. Do not blame yourself. Do not shrink back. Keep walking with an open heart. Only those who dare to embrace failure are mature enough to reach true success. You know, one reason people today feel so exhausted is because life has become overly complicated. We chase too many things at once: work, money, status, social relationships. We think that having more means greater happiness, that owning more brings greater safety. But the truth is different. The more we have, the more we fear losing. The more complex life becomes, the more tangled our mind grows. And in that race, many slowly lose their inner peace, leaving behind a deep emptiness. In the Buddha's teachings, he emphasized contentment, knowing enough. Human beings suffer because we do not know enough, always craving more, wanting more. Desire is a fire that can never be extinguished. The more fuel we add, the stronger it burns. When we have a house, we want a bigger house. When we have a car, we want a more luxurious one. When we have money, we want twice as much. Craving has no end, and therefore, the mind never rests. The Buddha taught that one who knows enough is truly rich. The one who feels content with what they have is the richest person in the world. The Dharma channel, Fat Fap, Lin Ning recalls the story of Nugent Van T from Tianjung, a man whose life experienced both complexity and simplicity. When young T was a skilled businessman, from a poor farmer he became the owner of a small workshop, saving enough to build a large home, buy a nice car, and acquire many comforts. Neighbors admired him, seeing him as a model of success. But the more wealth he accumulated, the more sleepless he became. At night he feared thieves, feared his children would go astray, feared friends would take advantage. His heart was never at peace, always heavy with worries. Possessions without peace become burdens. One day, after a serious illness that nearly took his life, T reflected on everything. He realized that after all the years of accumulating wealth, he had rarely felt true joy. Happiness came and went, but worries always stayed. He decided to sell much of his property, set aside a portion for his children, and move back to the countryside to live in a small home. There he planted vegetables, raised chickens, and lived with the gentle rhythm of rural life. Each morning he woke to birdsong. Each afternoon he watered the garden. Each evening he read sutras. His heart felt strangely free. No luxury car, no large house, but he regained the peaceful sleep he had lost for years. T's story teaches us a profound lesson. The more complicated life becomes, the more suffering arises. But when we simplify life, the heart opens, becoming light and spacious. In Buddhist philosophy, this is letting go of attachments to possessions and status. Human beings suffer not because we lack, but because our craving is endless. My dear friend, life is a long journey that each of us must walk through, with its joys and sorrows, gains and losses, successes and failures. There are moments when we feel as though we cannot take another step, when weariness seems to reach its deepest point. Yet it is precisely in those seemingly darkest moments that we have the chance to look back at ourselves and see clearly what truly matters. The Buddha taught that everything in this world is impermanent. Sorrow will pass, wounds will heal, and failure will turn into wisdom. What makes us suffer is not the event itself, but the way we hold it tightly in our hearts. When we learn to let go a little, to pause and breathe, to listen to ourselves, we realize that peace has never left us. It was simply hidden. Beneath our worries and attachments Life does not need to be filled with many things to be meaningful. All we need is a heart that knows contentment, a mind that knows how to let go, and steps that know how to return to the stillness within. Then we can already touch true peace, just like Lan, like H, like men when they dared to release their pain, dared to rise after failure, dared to simplify their lives. The light of serenity appeared naturally, and so will you. Even if today you feel tired, disappointed, or lost at a crossroads, please remember this: you have never been alone. Every sorrow you go through is a step bringing you closer to wisdom and maturity, as long as you do not abandon yourself. No failure can keep you down forever. Give yourself the right to live more gently. Practice letting go of what no longer belongs to you, and keep walking with a kind heart, steady and full of love. For after all, the most precious thing we can keep in this lifetime is the peace within our own mind.